Today's lesson is on the product rule and the quotient rule. So we've taken many derivatives up until this point, but we've never taken the derivative of a product where we have two functions being multiplied together. So in this example, we have that f of x is equal to x squared times sine of x. That's a product. We have two things being multiplied. The first thing is x squared, and we're multiplying that by sine of x. So that gives us a product. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at one that we know, f of x is equal to x to the fifth. We know how to take that derivative. We could use the power rule to do that. But what we're also going to do is we are going to separate it into a product, which is x squared times x cubed, and we're going to find the derivative that way as well. So first thing we're going to do is using the power rule. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find the derivative of x to the fifth, and that is 5x to the fourth. And again, that's one that we've known. It's nothing new. And now I'm going to talk through how we're going to find the derivative of this product. So the derivative I'm finding is derivative of x squared times x cubed. So the first thing I'm going to start with is my x cubed, which is my second term. I am then going to multiply that by 2x, which is the derivative of my first term. Then I'm going to add. I'm going to take my first term, and I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of that last term. Well, that's all great and fine, but the key is that better match up to what I started with, what I should end up with, and I should get 5x to the fourth. Well, right now, that's not what I have, but let's see what we do have. I simplify the first term that I have here, and that's 2x to the fourth. I simplify the second term that I have here, and that's 3x to the fourth. When I combine those, I get 5x to the fourth, which is exactly what I was trying to get when I did my derivative without using the product rule. So let's go ahead and write that out. So our product rule is f of x is equal to u times v. I'm going to rewrite that, and over here when I'm writing in words, I'm going to say f of x is going to be equal to the first term times the second term. And you may use words or first and second the way I've written it, either way, but the derivative is going to be the second term times the derivative of the first term plus the first term times the derivative of the second. If I leave it in symbols with the u and the v, what I would have is I would have the second term, which is v, times the derivative of the first term, which is u prime, plus the first term, which is u times v prime, the derivative of the second. And again, memorize that however it is you need to memorize that, but you will use that for the remainder of your calculus career. So what I'd like you to do right now is I would like for you to go ahead and do this u try. So pause the video and work the problem. Go ahead and pause your video now. So my final answer is at the bottom, but if it's not multiple choice, if I just asked you to find a derivative, I would like you to leave your answer just like this. There's no need to simplify. Okay, so leave your answer like this, unless it's multiple choice. I give you these simplifying problems simply to practice for the multiple choice. So if you got this question incorrect, please pause the video and try and see what you could do to fix it. If your problem was correct, please continue on with the video. So to the next page. Now we're going to add in the chain rule. So of course the chain rule is never going away. Now we just have a little more complicated chain rule because we have a product. I'm not going to simplify this one at all. I'm just going to write out exactly what this derivative is. I start by writing the second term. So that's my x minus 1 cubed. Then I multiply that by the derivative of the first. And I have a chain rule here when I'm looking at this cosine of 2x. So the derivative of cosine is negative sine of that same 2x. Now I need to multiply by the derivative of the inside of my cosine, which is 2x. The derivative of that is just 2. Now I'm going to add that to the first term, which is cosine of 2x, times the derivative of the second term. And again, that's a chain rule. So that's 3 times x minus 1 squared. The derivative of the inside is just 1. So this is the derivative of that product. Could we simplify this? Yes. If I ask you to just find the derivative, all I want you to do is do exactly what we just did. However, I'm going to go through and simplify it now just in case you have something like this on multiple choice. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing I want to do is actually factor out whatever I can. So looking at that first red and blue term, I have an x minus 1 cubed. When I look at the second blue and red term, I have another x minus 1 squared, which means I can factor out an x minus 1 to the second power from both of those terms. I'm going to do some rearranging in my first term because I want my negative sign to be in the front and I want that 2 to be in the front. So I have a negative 2. I have an x minus 1 left over because I initially had an x minus 1 cubed here. Then I still have my sign of 2x. In the second term, of course, I'm going to put my constant in front. That's a 3. I factored out all of my x minus 1's raised to the second power, so all I have left is cosine of 2x from my second term. So this is probably what it would look like if it were a multiple choice question. Right now, what I'd like you to do, go ahead and you try to find the derivative of 5x plus 2 raised to the 4th times e to the x squared. So go ahead and pause the video. Again, if this was a non-multiple choice question, then what I would hope to see is just this derivative I have in the green circle. So let's make sure that is correct. In the black, what I did is I went on and I simplified it. So if you need practice simplifying, I would go ahead and try and do that now. So if you're going to practice simplifying, or if you did not get the derivative that I have circled in the green, pause the video now to go ahead and do that. Continuing on, we did a product rule just now whenever we have a product of two functions, but what we haven't done yet is a quotient. Quotient is when we're actually dividing two functions. So now I have f of x is equal to x squared over sine of x. This one is a quotient because we are dividing x squared by sine of x. So what we're going to do is we're going to start again with our f of x is equal to x to the 5th, and we're going to find the derivative in two ways. The first way is just leaving it as x to the 5th and using the power rule. The second way, we're going to rewrite f of x as x to the 7th divided by x squared. So for the first one, we take our derivative and we get 5x to the 4th. So again, when we work out our quotient rule, we should also get 5x to the 4th. So I'm going to take the derivative of this and I'm going to walk you through what I'm doing. I'm going to first start with the denominator, or the bottom, and then I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of the top. Then I'm going to subtract. That's a big difference between the product rule and the quotient rule, is I subtract. Then I take the top times the derivative of the bottom. So although the product rule and quotient rule are similar, that subtraction is key. Then we're also actually going to divide by whatever was in the denominator squared. Well, let's see if this worked. Let's work this out, simplify it a little bit. So with this derivative, what I end up with is 7x to the 8th minus 2x to the 8th, and that's all over x squared squared, which is x to the 4th. Well, that leaves me with 5x to the 8 on top, 7 minus 2, and I'm dividing by x to the 4th. When I simplify that, I still have a 5, and x to the 8th over x to the 4th is x to the 4th, and that is exactly what we wanted, so we are happy we got the derivative correct. Let's go ahead and write that out now. So written in words, I'm going to start by rewriting my function. So my function, instead of calling it u divided by v, I'm going to call it top divided by bottom. And let's write out what this derivative is going to look like. So this derivative, again, I start with the red, which is the bottom, and I multiply that by the derivative of the top. I'm just going to write deriv top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom. And I'm going to divide all of that by the bottom squared. And again, written in symbols, we have a u, we have a v. So I have f prime of x is going to be what's on the bottom, which is my v, times the derivative of what's on the top, which is u prime, minus the top times the derivative of the bottom, v prime, all divided by the bottom squared. In this case, that is v squared. Again, we need to memorize this formula and be able to use it for the rest of your calculus career, which I hope is long and prosperous. Moving on, I would like you to try this one. Find the derivative of f of x is x squared divided by sine of x. Go ahead and pause the video now. So again, if this is not a multiple choice question, please feel free to leave your answer as I have it circled in green. If you simplify it, there's nothing really we can do with this one. I would simply move my variables in front of the trig function, just to make sure I'm not confused about what the trig is taking, what I'm taking the sine of, or what I'm taking the cosine of. Moving on to the example with the chain rule. We're going to go ahead and do this, and we're all mixed up, and we have a lot of chain rule here along with quotient rule, and it's just so exciting because we have so much calculus to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I start with the bottom. The bottom is 8x minus 3. I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of the top. The derivative of sine is cosine. The 5x stays. Then I multiply by the derivative of the inside, and the derivative of the inside for this function is 5x. So I multiply that by a 5. Subtract again, because I have a quotient. Then I'm going to leave the top as is, sine of 5x, and I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of the bottom, which is just 8. I'm going to take that and divide by the denominator squared. So 8x minus 3 squared. Again, when we have a quotient rule, product rule, and it's not a multiple choice question, you can go ahead and just leave it as is. Otherwise, we could simplify this one. I'd say let's not. Let's move on to you try. So go ahead, and I would like for you to pause the video and try to do this problem. Pause the video now, please. So this is what I got. And again, non-multiple choice. Feel free to leave it just like it is in this circle. You probably want to practice, though, simplifying this one to get the answer I have below. In fact, the final answer that I have, we should probably go ahead and distribute the 35 and distribute the 12 and then combine like terms. But I think you should practice with the factoring and how I've simplified this. So have a nice evening. Bring your questions to class tomorrow.